Following an intense and epic battle, the scene shifts to a grand throne hall. The king announces to the gathered court that 4 great warriors successfully aided the hero and defeated the demon king. In recognition of their efforts, the king declares that he is granting the sages of fire, earth, water, and wind a title reserved exclusively for the strongest of mages, the 4 emperors. One of the 4 men considers the weight of this reward, noting that only those of noble blood usually earn an emperor title in this world. It is an incredible reward. The king then calls specifically upon Sage Eftal. The king commands him to call himself the Lightning Emperor from this day forward. Overwhelmed with emotion, Eftal begins to cry and expresses how honored he is by the king's words. Many years pass, and an elderly Eftal now lives on a quiet farm. He supervises a group of young children practicing their magic. One of the young girls notices his exhaustion and asks why he does not get some rest. Eftal assures her that he is not tired at all, which satisfies the girl for the moment. This interaction triggers a brief memory for Eftal. He visualizes a destroyed village where he found a demon mother and her child caught up in the crossfire. In the present, Eftal looks at Merlin and thinks to himself that she does not know that he killed many members of her clan. He feels touched that she now looks at him with such worry. Shaking off the thought, he tells the children to go over their level 4 spells again. Merlin asks him to teach them level 6 spells instead. Eftal questions her hurry and suggests that they continue practicing their concentration instead, emphasizing that the fundamentals are vital. Later in the day, Merlin ventures alone into a dense forest. She spots a dark cave and resolves to defeat the monster lurking inside so she can truly call herself the Lightning Emperor's best student. She believes that if she becomes strong enough, she can teach the other children so that Eftal does not have to exert himself, allowing him to finally rest. Soon after, she is seen running through the trees in sheer panic. Her level 4 magic did not work against the creature at all. Realizing she has only one chance left, she unleashes the level 6 spell, Thunderbolt. The magical blast strikes the target, but the monster tanks the hit and prepares to counterattack. Just in time, Eftal arrives and saves her from danger. He sternly reminds her that he told her to stay away from this dangerous forest. He explains that she possesses the greatest potential among all of his students, but warns her that she is in far too much of a hurry. He tells her that power rushed to be mastered is no real power at all and will simply slip right through her fingers. When the monster gets back up to fight, Eftal unleashes a level 10 spell named after himself, Eftal, which completely obliterates the threat. That evening back at the house, Merlin reflects on how strong her master is. Eftal catches her studying and tells her that she has done enough work for the day, instructing her to go to bed. Merlin agrees, but her eyes widen in shock as Eftal suddenly coughs up blood. Eftal realizes she saw what happened and asks if she is aware of his condition. Merlin confesses that she noticed it some time ago, explaining that his sickness is the exact reason she wanted to learn magic as fast as possible. She begs her master to get as much rest as he can. Eftal replies that he has very little time left and absolutely no time to rest. When Merlin asks why he continues to train his magic despite being so ill, Eftal explains he wants to train talented students who will carry on after him. He admits he once wanted to be the strongest person in the world. Merlin questions his use of the past tense, pointing out that he is already incredibly strong and executed a level 10 spell with ease earlier that day. Internally, Eftal acknowledges her comforting words, but recognizes that compared to the raw talent of the younger generation, he always struggled. He remembers that even during the historic battle against the Demon King, he was the oldest member of the group, and the only one who constantly found himself struggling to keep up. The following day, a boy comes running toward the house in excitement, shouting that he has big news for Master Eftal. The boy reveals that the Flame Emperor has successfully finished his comprehensive theory of magical aptitude, holding out the research papers. Eftal reads through the documents, noting that discovering a person's magical aptitude was long thought to be impossible. He marvels at the explanation and praises the Flame Emperor as a true genius. Setting up the experiment, Eftal explains the process to the gathered children. He places a single hair from the test subject into separate vials, immersing them in a special magic water that is uniquely treated for each element. They start with Merlin, and the blue and green vials begin to glow with a vibrant light. Eftal explains that according to the research paper, the intensity of the light and the depth of the color indicate an aptitude rank ranging from E to S. Since the green and blue vials are glowing so brightly, he concludes that Merlin possesses an exceptional S-rank aptitude in both water and wind magic. The remaining test tubes are colored red and brown, which means her fire aptitude is C rank, and her earth aptitude is B rank. Eftal then requests to be tested next. Internally, he admits he wants to know the truth. Even if he can no longer reach the pinnacle of magic in his current state, he wants to know if he ever possessed the natural talent to get there. The experiment is then conducted, but the vials remain completely colorless. The children point out that the papers state colorless means a person has zero magical aptitude. They quickly reassure him that there must be a mistake, as it makes no sense for a member of the four emperors to have no talent. Eftal narrates, however, that the vials remained completely colorless no matter how many times they repeated the process. The harsh truth finally sets in. He recalls that it always took him significantly longer than anyone else to learn new magic, and that only his grueling effort allowed him to surpass his peers. He realizes that the only reason he could never beat the other emperors was because he possessed zero magical aptitude. Suddenly, his terminal sickness flares up violently, causing him to collapse as Merlin cries out his name in terror. Now completely bedridden, Eftal narrates his final moments. He feels deeply frustrated that his time has run out, believing that sheer effort would eventually get him to his goal. Gripped by overwhelming frustration, Eftal passes away. The screen then flashes with a notification for the skill, Second Reincarnation. Eftal suddenly finds himself in an endless white plane of existence. He recognizes the space, remembering that he stood here over 50 years ago when his first life ended in a completely different world. A divine woman then appears before him and greets him, noting that it has been a very long time. She explains that his unique skill, Indomitable, gave him the supernatural power to constantly work toward his goals without ever giving up. The goddess then announces that it is now time for his second reincarnation, retaining all of his previous magical knowledge. She points out that he managed to rise all the way to the prestigious rank of the four emperors, despite having zero natural aptitude, proving that his success was achieved not just through his skills, but through the sheer strength of his incredible will. The goddess then asks if he is ready to proceed, and after Eftal confirms, she bids him a wonderful journey as he fades away. Eftal suddenly opens his eyes as a young child, feeling his past memories rapidly flooding back into his mind. His doting mother immediately bursts into the room, wishing him a cheerful good morning and asking if he slept well before wrapping her beloved son in a suffocating embrace. She announces that breakfast is ready. Internally, Eftal notes that ever since he turned 4 years old, the vivid memories of his previous life as Eftal have steadily returned. He resolves that during this lifetime, he will truly master the arts of magic. Remembering the recipe from his previous life, Eftal prepares the special water for a magical aptitude test to check his new body. He watches the liquid closely, but the vials remain colorless. Though he half expected this outcome, he feels a pang of disappointment realizing that he will likely hit his strict limits upon learning level 10 spells, just like last time. Suddenly, a massive dragon with terrifying crimson eyes roars in the distance. An army of cavalry soldiers pursues the beast, shouting that the dragon is heading straight for the capital and ordering everyone to stop it at all costs. Looking at the chaos, Eftal notes that while he could have easily handled this threat at the peak of his previous life, he is currently only 4 years old and possesses a frail body. However, he remembers his own original level 10 spell, Eftal. He focuses his energy and casts the high-level spell. A bolt of lightning crashes down from the heavens, striking the dragon dead and sending it crashing to the ground. As the soldiers approach the fallen beast, Eftal realizes that he has been reborn into this world with the ability to wield the peak magical capabilities of his old life, even at the mere age of 4. 3 years pass after Eftal reincarnates into his new body. Through dedicated research, he discovers that this world is actually his original homeland, 400 years after his previous life. He now lives in a modest house with his mother, Ilya. Eftal's older brother, Fraser, arrives to deliver their monthly living expenses. Eftal sits quietly nearby, engrossed in a complex book far beyond his age. Fraser notes how impressive it is that a child so young can read such difficult texts, offering to bring more books during his next visit. Eftal cheers happily. Ilya smiles and remarks that Eftal takes after his father, and Fraser agrees, stating that while Eftal might not fully grasp the contents yet, he will surely master them soon, which will make their father pleased. Curious, Eftal asks when he will finally get to meet his father. Fraser looks down apologetically, explaining that his father is extremely busy and rarely has time to spare. Eftal has never met his father, Duke Orkot, a powerful figure in the magical hierarchy of the Kingdom of Azul. Because Duke Orkot is a direct descendant of Eftal's past identity as the Lightning Emperor, Eftal feels a natural curiosity toward him. However, because Ilya possesses no magical aptitude, the Duke's main wife and mistresses looked down on her with bitter disdain, questioning why a prominent mage family would bear a child with someone lacking magic. Eventually, the Duke's wife banished Ilya and Eftal to live in relative isolation in the countryside, leaving Eftal unrecognized by his father's noble house. Fraser, who is the second son of Duke Orkot's official wife, takes pity on their condition and routinely looks after them out of pure kindness. Fraser asks if they need any further help, but Ilya assures him they have everything they need and steps away to prepare tea. Eftal pays little mind to the noble drama, focusing entirely on his desire to study magic again. When Fraser asks what Eftal hopes to achieve in the future with all his reading, Eftal proudly announces his intention to attend the capital's prestigious magic academy when he turns 15. Before he can say more, Ilya quickly covers his mouth. She tells Fraser that Eftal inherited her lack of magical aptitude, so she intends for him to study swordsmanship and join a military school instead. Fraser enthusiastically supports the idea, sharing that he graduated at the top of his military school class after rebelling against his family's magical legacy and noting that magic swordsmen are rare and highly valued by the military. Intrigued, Fraser decides to test Eftal's swordsmanship in the yard right then and there. Outside, Fraser guides Eftal's stance, encouraging him to put more strength into his wrists. Impressed by Eftal's solid posture, Fraser praises his natural talent for martial arts. Watching his brother, Eftal realizes why his family only taught him basic education and military science from an early age. They planned to send him to military school all along to compensate for his lack of magic. Still, Eftal pauses his swing and directly tells Fraser that he wants to attend the magic academy. Fraser tries to explain that everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, but Eftal insists that he possesses mana and can cast spells regardless of his official aptitude. He secretly knows that entering the Magic Academy is his best chance at discovering clues to surpass his previous magical limits. Seeing Eftal's determination, Fraser makes a deal. If Eftal can replicate a spell that Fraser casts, Fraser will personally write him a recommendation for the Magic Academy. Eftal eagerly accepts. Fraser steps back and chants an invocation to the wind elemental Sylphie, launching a level 2 wind edge spell into the air. Expecting Eftal to be awestruck, Fraser turns to him with pride. Eftal simply asks if that is all. Fraser defends the spell, explaining that level 2 magic requires substantial concentration. In response, Eftal effortlessly summons a massive, chantless gust of wind that shatters the surrounding air with power equivalent to a level 4 spell. Fraser stands paralyzed in disbelief as the fierce wind swirls past. He stammers that a 7-year-old child casting high-level magic instantly without an incantation is unheard of, something achievable only by legendary sages after decades of intense practice. Flustered, Eftal apologizes, explaining that he meant to copy Fraser's spell directly, but accidentally elevated it to level 4. Fraser gasps that level 4 is ultra-advanced magic. Internally, Eftal wonders why level 4 is considered advanced when he thought of it as basic magic. When Fraser asks in disbelief how he managed such a feat, Eftal tries to play it down by explaining he adapted his theoretical knowledge to his current body, offhandedly adding that he can cast spells up to level 10. Upon hearing that Eftal can wield level 10 magic, a tier considered lost technology, Fraser collapses on the spot and faints. Eftal realizes that magic culture has drastically declined over the last 4 centuries, and chantless magic is no longer common practice. Soon after, Fraser wakes up bolt upright in bed, screaming in panic about a 7-year-old using chantless magic. To keep his abilities hidden and avoid further shock, Eftal lies smoothly. He asks Fraser what he is talking about, claiming that Fraser had cast a spell so powerful that a flying piece of wood struck him in the head and knocked him unconscious. Fraser sheepishly accepts the lie, believing his own magic caused his fainting spell. Following the incident, Eftal resolves to continue his magic studies strictly in secret while playing along with Fraser's plans for military school. Over the next few years, his indomitable spirit drives him to seek strength beyond just spellcasting. By the time he reaches 10 years old, Eftal finds genuine enjoyment in mastering the sword, deciding that becoming a powerful magic swordsman sounds like a worthy goal. Fraser continues to visit 3 times a week to train him in combat. One afternoon, Fraser brings a guest to their training session, Moria, the former knight commander of the Kingdom of Azul. Eftal is taken aback by the man's massive, imposing frame. Moria generously offers Eftal the first blow, but Eftal freezes, unable to spot a single opening in the veteran knight's guard. Seeing Eftal hesitate, Moria lunges forward with blind speed. Eftal barely manages to react, immediately activating physical enhancement magic. Moria and Fraser take note of his impressive mana control, with Fraser explaining that despite having no magical aptitude, Eftal controls his internal energy as smoothly as a high-ranking mage. Determined to win through pure physical skill rather than magic, Eftal holds back his lethal spells. Moria taunts Eftal, declaring that his small frame and lack of muscle put him years away from matching a real knight. However, as Moria closes in, Eftal instinctively utilizes the opponent's momentum against him. Drawing on martial art throw techniques he learned during his past life on Earth, Eftal cleanly flips the giant knight over his shoulder, slamming him to the ground. Moria sits up in shock, laughing as he accepts his loss in the overall match. Fraser reveals that Moria is actually the headmaster of the prestigious Azul School of Military Science, and that Eftal has officially earned a spot to enroll when he turns 15. As the years pass, Eftal continues his duel training. One rainy evening, Fraser notices a massive storm approaching and asks Ilya where Eftal has gone. Ilya responds that he is out in the woods practicing his sword, noting that he never lets bad weather interrupt his routine. Deep in the forest, Eftal takes advantage of the storm to cast his level 10 spell, Eftal, into the sky, without drawing suspicion. He notes a slight time delay when executing 9th and 10th level magic, resolving to refine his speed. Fraser comes running through the trees, panicked by the massive lightning strike, but Eftal reassures him that he is unharmed. Fraser reminds him to stay safe, emphasizing how important his upcoming enrollment at the military academy next year is. Now 14 years old, Eftal nods on the outside, but internally confirms his secret plan. Once he reaches 15 and gains legal independence, he will leave home and head to the Magic Academy on his own. Shortly before Eftal's 15th birthday, Fraser arrives with news that Duke Orcott has agreed to meet Eftal in person. Ilya bursts into tears of joy, believing her son's hard work and military recommendation finally earned the Duke's respect. Although Eftal feels no emotional connection to a father who abandoned him for 14 years, he agrees to go to make his mother and Fraser happy. Upon arriving at the Duke's opulent mansion, Eftal steps into the formal receiving room and enthusiastically greets his father. Duke Orcott immediately cuts him off, commanding Eftal to address him strictly as Duke Orcott. He coldly declares that he has never recognized Eftal as his son, calling him an embarrassment to the bloodline for lacking magical aptitude despite being a descendant of the Lightning Emperor. Eftal inwardly rolls his eyes at his descendant's arrogant behavior, wishing he could return home. The Duke shifts his attention to Eftal's military academy invitation. Seeing the official document, Orcott smiles with cold satisfaction. He expresses relief that he will no longer have to spend a single coin on Eftal's food and housing, taking comfort in the fact that the military academy covers all living expenses and provides a third-year stipend. Realizing the Duke only called him here out of pure greed to offload financial responsibility, Eftal concludes that his noble father is entirely scum. Duke Orcott then turns to a heavily built, bald young man standing beside him, his other son, Joachim. Orcott orders Joachim to test Eftal's combat skills to ensure he will not bring shame to the house during his military service. Smirking, Joachim steps forward, eager to teach Eftal a harsh lesson. Eftal narrows his eyes, realizing the true nature of this family reunion and preparing himself for the impending duel. The confrontation moves outdoors to the palace's garden, where Fraser pulls Eftal aside to warn him that this mock battle is dangerous. Fraser explains that despite his appearance, Joachim earned top marks in sword fighting at school and possesses high skill, advising Eftal to surrender immediately if he feels overwhelmed. Eftal nods in agreement. Joachim sneers at Eftal, remarking that the boy had the choice to run away, but Eftal replies that he will not run. Joachim tosses Eftal a heavy hardwood sword, explaining that while such weapons are not standard, a single heavy blow is enough to shatter bones or crush a skull. When Eftal asks what he means, Joachim launches into a harsh tirade, insulting both Eftal and his mother. He declares that as the eldest son of the true family, he will teach them a lesson, calling Eftal a pig and cursing Ilya for her lack of magical aptitude. Joachim boasts that he would love to kill Ilya, but will settle for killing Eftal instead, mockingly offering Eftal the first attack as a handicap. As Joachim continues to make vulgar remarks about their father and Ilya, Eftal feels rage burning inside him, appalled that such vile individuals are his own descendants. Eftal steps forward and strikes. Joachim barely reacts in time to block, wondering if the boy actually knows how to use a sword. Joachim boasts about blocking the strike, but Eftal quietly activates his physical ability enhancement. Suddenly moving with terrifying power, Eftal knocks Joachim out cold with a single clean blow. Standing over his unconscious brother, Eftal delivers a cold warning that if Joachim ever insults his mother again, he will kill him. Eftal turns to his mother and says they are done, telling her it is time to leave. Shocked by his sudden display of martial prowess, Ilya asks if he is truly the Eftal she knows, and he brightly assures her that he is. Walking past Duke Orkot, Eftal cheerily thanks him for inviting them. The Duke stammers out a weak wish for Eftal's success at military school next year, and Eftal breezily bids him farewell. Back at their quiet house, 2 weeks pass without any retaliation. Ilya calls Eftal for dinner, and he comes over while pondering why his father's side has remained quiet. Suddenly, a knock sounds at the door. Ilya asks who is there, and Fraser enters alongside Moria, holding a tiny baby in his arms. Eftal looks on in surprise. Fraser explains the crisis that just unfolded. Shortly before, Fraser had addressed the soldiers of the Royal Guard, explaining that while the Holy Knights and the main army set out to battle neighboring forces, the Guard was left behind to defend the capital. When Moria questioned whether military school recruits were needed for city defense, Fraser revealed that the Crown Minister's faction was plotting to assassinate the baby prince in the main army's absence. Moments later, an informant rushed in reporting that southern barbarians were attacking the capital, forcing Fraser and Moria to evacuate the prince immediately. Standing in Eftal's home, Fraser explains that the sudden chaos forced them to flee to the only safe hideout he could think of. Eftal reflects on the kingdom's political strife. The current king, who is the second son, took the throne because of his superior talent over the eldest brother, who became the crown minister. Because the king previously had no male heirs, the minister's son was next in line, but the birth of the young prince threatened that ascension, prompting the minister's faction to strike. Eftal asks how barbarians could infiltrate the capital, despite heightened defenses, and Fraser admits he suspects his own father, Duke Orkot, orchestrated the betrayal to gain power under a new regime. With return to the capital impossible, Fraser declares they must cross the border to deliver the prince to the safety of the main army. At dawn, Fraser thanks Ilya, who tells them to stay safe. Eftal insists on joining them. Though Ilya worries, Moria welcomes the extra help. Eftal remembers how the king 400 years ago supported him with supplies against the Demon King, feeling a personal duty to protect the realm and stop his corrupt descendants. En route, Fraser outlines their path through Neil Forest and across Moralis Plains toward the border. As they enter Neil Forest, Eftal notices an eerie silence with no animal sounds, and Moria detects thunder-like rumblings. Fraser urges them to hurry out of the woods, but as they near the tree line, they find their path blocked by Duke Orkot leading his entire personal mage division. Before they can fall back, flames burst out behind them, trapping them between the burning forest and an army of mages. Realizing they have nowhere to run, Fraser decides to step forward unarmed to persuade his father to resolve the conflict through dialogue, believing his father still possesses some humanity. Joachim asks Orkot how to handle him, and Orkot walks out under the guise of talking. When Fraser tries to reason with him, Orkot cold-heartedly declares that Fraser is simply in his way. He blasts Fraser with a shock-emitting magical artifact before ordering his mages to rain down level 6 Eftal magic on the forest. Moria holds back Eftal as the destructive magic strikes Fraser's collapsed body. Seeing his kind brother struck down for trying to protect an innocent child, Eftal's aura transforms into pure, furious authority. Moria notices the dramatic shift in his demeanor. Eftal steps forward, declaring he will show them what true magic looks like. He casts level 9 Cositus, instantly freezing the entire burning forest in ice. The surrounding mages panic in terror at the chantless, impossible spell. Orkot frantically orders a barrage of level 5 explosion arrows, scoring a direct hit. However, Eftal walks out completely unharmed behind an always-on magic defense circle. When the mage division combines their power to fire a level 6 Eftal focus blast, Eftal finds it insulting to hear his name used for such weak spell work, instantly negating it with level 7 extra magic guard. Enhancing his physical movements with swordplay and level 2 riot bomb magic, Eftal tears through the fleeing mages. As they turn their backs, Eftal summons level 10 Eftal, gathering real storm clouds and calling down catastrophic lightning that wipes out the entire division. Only Orkot and Joachim survive behind a flickering barrier. Eftal corners the terrified men, telling them that as conspirators in an assassination attempt and monsters who killed their own family, they deserve no mercy. The coup fails, and both Duke Orkot and Joachim are publicly executed. Sometime later, Eftal visits a fully recovered Fraser. Fraser reveals that a heirloom necklace saved his life from the strike, which Eftal recognizes as his past life artifact, Oberon's guard. With Orcott dead, Fraser takes over the family headship, maintaining the peerage thanks to his bravery in protecting the crown prince. When Eftal demonstrates continuous level 7 spells to Fraser and Moria, they promise to keep his divine power a secret to avoid world chaos. Fraser asks Eftal about his future, and Eftal confirms his decision to attend the Magic Academy to further his studies. Moria agrees to continue training Eftal in swordsmanship until he turns 15, and Eftal gratefully accepts.